Hello, my name is H.A. Pruitt and I'm the author of the Anelthalien series. And in this video I'm going to talk about the Anelthalien series. And I'm going to talk about it from a perspective of a question I ask on Instagram and Facebook, mostly Instagram answered. I asked the question, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Christian fiction? The Anelthalien series is Christian fiction, so that's why I ask. I was just curious what people thought of when they heard Christian fiction. So if you want to put it in the comments before I start talking about anything else, your first reaction when you hear Christian fiction. And you can say anything, anything goes, and you'll see once I get going on my list, anything goes. So what's your first response when you hear Christian fiction? Please put it in the comments so I can see more responses, because it's kind of fun to see what people think of when they think of Christian fiction. When you're an author and you write a certain genre, certain genre, you think of your book when you hear that. And so it's interesting to see what other people think of when they hear you talk about it. So I'm going to talk about the answers I got and how my books line up with those answers or don't line up with those answers. Some will be kind of funny, some will be kind of serious, some will be weird. So here we go. So I'm going to do the ones that don't really line up with my book at all first. So people said they thought of Amish characters whenever they hear Christian fiction. And yes, I totally get it. I have a relative who has bookcases full of Amish fiction, and that's all I knew that was Christian fiction before I became an author. So my books do not have Amish characters. They have a variety of characters, and it's set in a fantasy world, so there's a greater variety than just human characters. I won't go into it, but there's no Amish characters in my books. It's a fantasy book. It has people from Earth and has people from the fantasy land that are not Amish, and not any kind of people group that is like Amish at all. Somebody else said cheesy. Christian fiction, they think cheesy. So I don't think my series is cheesy, and I know anybody would say that. But reviewers have said that my characters and my books feel so real that they are annoying. They say the characters are so real, so much like real teenagers, and their thoughts and their feelings and their situations are so real that sometimes they can be annoying, like real teenagers can be. And so my reviewers have said, in a way, that it's not that cheesy, fake kind of, Christian fiction. It's over the top, everybody's spouting Bible verses and everybody's perfect, and it's just it's so cheesy. Oh my goodness. My books are not like that. The characters are real. They never say the right thing. Tad is always surprising me at how well he cannot say the right thing and how well he cannot do the right thing. And when Kendall tries to say the right thing, she's kind of it's just and she sounds like a real teenager. She sounds like me when I try to say the right thing. It doesn't work. So, if you like books with realistic characters, instead of cheesy characters, try my Christian fiction series. People also said that Christian fiction is often not well edited. My first book, I'm not super proud of the editing. I hired, in a way, long story short, hired someone to do my editing. I didn't really know a lot about editing then. I've learned so much since then because they didn't do a great job, and so that's why I learned, and now I do it myself. And now I am confident in my editing. I think I do a good job with my editing. So the first one's not perfect. There's not commas in the right places, and it drives me crazy. But the rest of the series is going to be edited well because I'm going to study and look up and research editing to make sure I do these books well. I try to make my books professional. They're not super fancy. Oh my goodness, it's the most beautiful formatting ever. But I make them look clean. I make them look professional. I make them look like traditionally published books. I do my best to do that. So I'm not going to just, flub it out and say, oh, it's good enough. No, no. I want this book to represent what God gave me. And so I'm going to make it look the best it can and be edited the best it can. Okay. People said that Christian fiction, they think it's lacking in raw depth. And you get that with Christian fiction, sometimes they don't include certain topics because it's not, we don't talk about those things. Okay, I tell you, we talk about things in Anelthalien. If you've just read, the first two books, you may be like, well, not really. You don't get really depthful. But as the series goes on, as you learn the characters more, you learn more and more and more about them. And they just say whatever, and they talk about whatever, and they have like realistic lives and realistic problems, and stuff happens, and they get mad about it, and they yell at each other. And it has that depth of reality to it. The one I'm editing right now, my 4th book, makes me sob so much because of how much depth it has to it, how these problems are so real, and how I can relate so much in my own life to these problems, and how I'm so certain that with this 4th book, so many people could relate so much to this, and it just tackles these really hard topics, but it does it in ways that are not like ugly. I don't know. It does it in ways that are just realistic, just flat out realistic. It's not being like, oh, this is awful and horrible and woe is me. And it's not like, well, you know, everybody died, but it's okay. It's like, this is what's happening. And this is how it is. And that's what it is. It's just real depth. And so my books do not lack that depth. They are real, they are realistic, and they don't shy away from things that are just life. Okay, another one, I really loved the person when they said this. They said Christian fiction makes them think historical girls who fall in love and do boring stuff. And I thought that was really funny because when I went to bookstores and I looked around the Christian fiction section, it's like, oh, it's historical romance. Okay, that's boring. I don't like historical romance. If you do, you go for it and you read it. But I had the same feeling as this person that replied to me. And so I'm going to tell you, Anelthalien is not historical fiction. It's not a romance. There's a little like kind of side slow, like super slow burn romance thing going on that you'll probably really enjoy between 2 of the characters. But it's not a romance at all. That's like super side plot thing. And do boring stuff. My not historical characters that are not falling in love do exciting stuff and cool stuff and fun stuff. The reviewers have said like the situations and the people and the things, it's just Anelthalien is unique, and they like how unique it is and exciting it is. And I do too. When I write it, I'm always surprised, and I'm always like, I didn't see that coming, I didn't see that happening, I didn't know they were gonna go here, I didn't know they were gonna do that. So not boring stuff. And also people said Amish romance. Again, no Amish, no romance. Not anything against that if you like that, but that's not my books. And also people said historical novels. They think of historical novels when they think of Christian fiction. A lot of historical novels out there that are Christian fiction. Mine's not historical, it's fantasy. Set in a fantasy land, modern times on Earth, fantasy land. They go there, they spend the majority of the books in the fantasy land. So it's fantasy. And yeah, so those are all the things that people said that do not line up with my Anelthalien books. So if you hear, oh, my books are Christian fiction, and you're like, ugh, then like give a chance to these, because my books are something different. That's my tagline. If you ever wanted something different, Anelthalien is waiting. And it's just so different than the majority of Christian fiction. There's a lot of other kinds of Christian fiction coming up in recent years that's different than everything, but mine is part of that something different part of the Christian fiction. So if you don't like typical Christian fiction, try the Anelthalien books. And so now I'm going to tell you what is in the Anelthalien books, so you get an idea of what they are instead of just what they aren't. Okay, so people said uplifting stories. Definitely. Anelthalien has some hard things in it. It has some hard topics. The characters, they're like bad things happen, and things they don't like happen. But it's always the next thing people said, that it's like a unique worldview and written from a Christian worldview. And part of that is the whole like light against darkness thing. Like there's darkness in life. There's darkness in real life. There's darkness in my books. But there's this light constantly. If you are searching for the light, if you're heading toward this light, if you're trying to figure out this light, there's going to be this light that is God. And in my books, we don't name God by God's name, but there's a God figure. You know, like Narnia has Aslan, kind of that idea. Anelthalien has the makers, or the maker, depending on which book you're reading. I'm not going to say anything more. So I'll say either one, makers or maker. You'll have to read the 4th book to find out. I'm not sacrilegious, I promise. And also in Anelthalien, the worldview it shows, I think people online meant that it shows a Christian worldview. And my books, most of the characters are not Christians. They're not following the God figure. They're not following the maker. Most of them aren't, but some are. And they're trying to lead the characters in the right way. So you get glimpses of the truth. And then you have these characters who you get like a not Christian worldview from them. They're living their life, they're doing their thing. And then you have the villains, of course, who are definitely living their life, doing their own thing, being evil. So you get a balance of what it's on the side of before you become a Christian, not being a Christian, not wanting to be one. And you get the side of God's perspective of things. So you get a lot of different perspectives in Anelthalien. So it's not just, oh, it's a Christian worldview, and so everything that happens is just, it's God's will, and that's what we say, and that's what we do, and that's it. You get like both sides of the story. People saying, this is stupid, and I hate it, and I don't care if it's God's will, it's bad. And you have people saying, well, it is God's will, and it is bad, but he's doing something with it. So you get a range of perspectives, a range of worldviews. Faith. People said faith is in Christian fiction. As the books go on, you get more faith. And faith can mean a lot of different things when you're talking about Christianity. So if you started reading the Anelthalien series and you're like, I don't see a lot of faith, keep reading, and as the Anelthalien series goes, you get more deep into the Christian thing. It doesn't get preachy, it doesn't get cheesy, but it gets just deep. It gets deep, like deep thoughts and hard things and tackling tough topics. It gets deeper and deeper. It's good stuff. Okay, so faith gets more evident in the books as you go on. What else did people say? Main character that's open about being a Christian. So since my book is fantasy, we don't necessarily have a Christian figure in the books. We have people following the Maker or not. Well, we have people believing in the Maker or not believing in the Maker. It's hard to describe because of how it's set up. But you have some people who do believe the Maker and do what he says and believe in the things he does and says and things. But that's not the majority. The majority is not Christians. I don't know how to say this in my book because there's no Christians in my book. It's the things in there that have to do with Christianity, like it's not hidden. It's not like I'm afraid to be talking about it, but it's incorporated in ways that it's like kind of gradually showing the characters the right way to go. So it's kind of hard to talk about without going into super duper detail and talking about it for a really long time. But I don't know what, I don't want to give spoilers too. The Christianity part in my books is not hidden. It's not meant to fool people. When it's there, it's clear. But it's not always clear to the characters what God is doing. It's kind of like in our lives. Like, we're not always sure what God is doing, so we're not always talking about God, but when we see him and we know it's him, then it's like clear. So it's kind of that idea. I hope that makes sense. That doesn't really go with what that one person said, but I hope that tells you more about my books. The next person said, clean. Christian fiction is supposed to be clean. Everybody has a different version of clean, but I would say my books are clean. They're meant for YA, and I know a lot of people say YA can have spice, and YA can have cussing, and YA can have all this, but my books don't have cussing at all. My books don't have any topics that teenagers are not going to deal with. I don't want to give away things, but they're not going to learn anything new from my books. And any topic is presented more like them talking about it than them like engaging in it. And my books never glorify sin. Always sin is painted in this picture of showing sin for what it really is, evil. And so in that respect, I say my books are clean. I heard my husband in my head being like, but you have mud in your books. Shut up. Anyway, so the next thing a person said is free of bedroom scenes. My books, it's not a romance, so you don't have to worry about that. And then the last thing that a person said that could apply to my books with a message and characters intended to witness to readers. So my characters aren't going around saying, believe in Jesus Christ as God's son, but it is meant to show people God, the heart of God, God's love for you, that God cares about you, and no matter how bad life gets, no matter what is going on in your life, no matter how far you try to run, God is right there loving you so much. And so it does that through story form. It doesn't do that through someone saying that. It does that through story form, showing you how this is, showing how God really is. And it's a fantasy setting, but it totally applies to real life. Everything in these books I have experienced in my life in a totally different way, but in a very same way. Oh, this fourth book, I'm thinking about things in it. I want you to read this fourth book so bad. So read the first three. Read the first three books in the Anelthalien series. Even if you don't like Christian fiction, typically, try these books out. They're so good, so different, so just their own thing. And I just love them so much. I'm going to put my website below if you want to read the synopsis of each book, you know, the back of the book blurb thing, what they're about. If you want to look at pictures, I have tons of pictures. I do my own illustrations because I love drawing. If you want to just learn anything else about Anelthalien, go to my website, look through it, look through all the pages, all the stuff. You can ask me any questions about Anelthalien. And two more things. Two more people. One person said that Christian fiction is Twilight. I don't know how. I've read some of the Twilight series and I don't think so at all. Not one bit. And another person said that Christian fiction is the Bible. To which I said, actually, the Bible's nonfiction because it's true. And they said that's arguable. And I'm not going to argue with anybody, so I stopped there. But the Bible's not fiction, it's true. So that's the last thing I want to say about my list. Please read the Anelthalien series. And the fourth one is coming out, like, I'm not going to give an exact date yet, but early in 2004. Early in 2004, like the first couple months. The first couple months in 2024. Okay, I'm so excited because this book, like, I remember writing it and reading it to my husband and just being like, this book can save people's lives. It can show them who God really is. Oh my goodness, it's so exciting. And I'm so excited about it. It's so good. So I'm going to go back to editing it right now and looking through it and proofreading it because I have my proof copy and all that. I'm going to go back to working on it so I can get it to you guys. Please read the first three books in the series. They're available on Amazon. And check out my website. The link is below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. If you want to know more about Anelthalien or H.A. Pruitt, please follow me on Instagram at H.A. Pruitt. You can find me on Amazon as an Amazon author, H.A. Pruitt. Please watch my YouTube channel and all my cool videos on my channel, H.A. Pruitt Anelthalien. You can find me on the Facebook page, H.A. Pruitt Anelthalien. You can follow me on Goodreads by the name H.A. Pruitt and the book Anelthalien. Or you can go to my website where so much cool stuff about Anelthalien is. The website is hapruitt.com.